Hey everyone, welcome to Sudbury Interviews. Today we have Andy Lowe, a Sudbury classic musician who's been playing for a long time, and he was actually born in England and crossed the pond a little while ago and has been playing here ever since. Before, before we begin, you can find us on Sudztown.com and join the conversation. Hey Andy, how you doing?
Hi, Dani. Nice to hear from you. I'm doing very well, thank you.
So tell us about England. You were born there.
Yeah, um, England is it's a beautiful little country. Very small compared to Canada, really, but quite a densely populated. Lots of pubs. I grew up um, in a village, and we were in school. We were all into music. All my school chums. We loved the Beatles and the Stones and stuff like that. And of course, we all wanted to play. Everybody wanted to play guitar, um, but I was one that kind of stuck. We had a school band. Well, we had a rock band in school as well. We had a little band, a little group, and I was just a rhythm guitarist and backing vocals. And my buddy Guy, who I still in contact with it to this day, he was a vocalist, and we had a drummer, and that's where I really learned my musical chops. In the band at school. We were only 14 or 15, but we really liked to play, and it was a lot of fun. So that's how I got into it. And when I was 18, I started playing solo in the pubs, local pub. I went down and asked them if they needed somebody to play, and they gave me a try, and it was a completely different experience to playing in the group at school, because you're on your own. If you make a mistake, you feel like. So I was really nervous. I was so nervous. I went to the George Hotel in Pangbourne, which is where I did my first live gig solo. I was convinced that the guys at the bar would start laughing at me, and I tried, actually. I couldn't finish the first song. I just kind of petered out, and I thought they were going to turn and start jeering or something, but they didn't. They just carried on. I couldn't finish the second song, and they were still not giving me a hard time. So by the third song, I'd kind of settled into it, and by the end of the set, I was, up and running as a solo. So that was the beginning of it, really. But of course, when you leave school, the career advisor is not going to say, you should become a musician. They never say that. I
Right.
went to work in an office, as an administrative assistant, and I thought that was going to be the end of my musical career, if you like, or my musical life. It might be something I do as a hobby, but I didn't ever think I'd be a musician. And then I was also into theater, and I did some, community theater shows in the village and around the area. And in one of the shows, a lady said, "You should be going to theater school." I said, "Oh, geez, what's theater school?" And I'd never even heard of, RADA or any of these theater schools. And she said, "You really should. You're meant to be a performer, and you should go to theater school." So I applied to theater school, and I went to theater school, when I was like 20. And that's where I met a girl from Canada, and that's what got me interested in Canada. And I came over to Ontario for a visit, and then I was offered a job with a school touring theater company here, and I came and started doing that. And I was into theater for a number of years. And in between the theater gigs, though, theater gigs are few and far between. I decided, well, maybe I'll play in the bars here as well, and that's what I started doing. In fact, when I first came to Sudbury, it was for the Sudbury Theatre Centre, and I really liked Sudbury. I thought it's a neat town. I liked the big open spaces nearby, and I liked the people. And there's a pub called the Fox and Hound right across the street. same bar that I actually saw you first playing in, Dani.
Really?
But it changed names by the time you were in there. But that's when I saw you. I thought, oh yeah,
So,
I enjoyed seeing you in there because it kind of reminded me when I started out in there.
and you're
And the
referring
response, pardon?
you're referring to the building they're about to knock down.
Yes, I am. That's a yes. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's
Wow.
architecturally, I don't think it's like a heritage building or anything, but it is a shame because it's got so many memories for so many people. These musical memories, particularly for me and probably for you. Right through all of its incarnations as Shaughnessy's and Cactus Pete's and Plum Crazy and Wacky
Wow.
Wings. Um, anyway, I did a gig there. I got a gig across there, and it went so well. They invited me to play there every week, and then I got a little following here in Sudbury of people that were, hey, there's this English guy playing at the Fox and Hound. You got to come and check him out, and it was good for me. So eventually, the theater jobs kind of dried up, and the gigs kind of took off. And I became a musician. I never thought I would. That would be my primary, you know, job, but that's what it's been, and it's been really good to me over the years. I was really lucky to get that Killarney Mountain Lodge gig, and that was 6 nights a week during the summertime, during the tourist season, and that was a really good boost. And I've just kept going. There were times, though, Dani, when I thought, oh, my goodness, I'm going to have to get a day job. I can't keep doing this. You know what it's like when you're night after night and you're playing and
Yeah.
you sort of lose it. But I came through all that in the end. I found a way of, remaining enthusiastic and energetic no matter how many times I played certain songs. I played them over. I found a way of enjoying playing them every time I played them, and that was the key, really. And now, of course, I'm just having a wonderful time because I'm at Finn McCool's every Thursday. It's great. I still play in Killarney, but just mainly daytime gigs for the visitors who come on the cruise ships. And I still play here and there and serve the community as best I can, And it's been Sudbury's been really good to me. It's a good town. In fact, the music scene in Sudbury right now is the best it's been in all the time I've been here, Dani.
Is that right?
Because, yeah, it is. Because when I first came here, lots of people were lamenting the DJs coming in and taking musicians' jobs, and bars change, and live music didn't become quite as important. And, when I first came, there was only a couple of other guys playing. There was Jeff Wiseman, and there was Dani Diaz, and I'm talking about solo players. Now there's a whole load of solo players and all kinds of venues. And lots of people are doing music. And the Sudbury Performance Group has been quite good in assisting in that regard. They've really seen... helped the bar scene by booking people into bar gigs. They also run the theater, obviously, and they have, theater operations and concerts and so on. But it's nice that they recognize that the bars are a place where the arts take place, the performing arts venues, if you like. And they've helped, I think, by getting people started. So there's lots of players here in this town, lots of talent. Music scene is on fire right now, and it's a great place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I love it
It,
here, and I'm doing everything I can to promote our
yeah.
beautiful city. I mean, if somebody comes up to me and says there's nothing to do in Sudbury, as somebody who has been running a website for the last almost 9 years now, and some days there's 100 things to do on there, and it's like, are you kidding me? There's so much to do. It's just
Yes,
you gotta look around and be creative about it. But there's so much going on, you know.
yes. There's all kinds of patios. There's all kinds of little, bars that do entertainment on the weekends. There's lots of stuff going on. There's Yes Theatre, of course, is absolutely fantastic. The theatre, the Sudbury Performance Group plays up at Thornlow, and they're really very heavy schedule. They do like a play every month almost, which is phenomenal. Turnover, and so there is lots of stuff to do.
Yeah. Well, you already know this, but you're my favorite local entertainer, and
Oh,
you've
thanks.
encouraged me enormously since I met you, but probably about 20 years ago, and um, I I've gained so much from you. You've said a lot of wonderful, important things to me that have really helped me, and
Oh, thank you, Dani. Well, you're a great guy and a great entertainer, and you've got a lovely voice, and you play well, and all of those things are great assets. But I think the main thing I try and get across to musicians is it's the way you deal with the psychology of
yes,
uh, sometimes not getting a gig, sometimes trying to get a gig, and then and how do you keep it fresh every night? How do you do it? Those kind of things. They're not really to do with the musical skill, and I think in order to be a good entertainer or to be of service to your community, you have to kind of get past those things that are psychological barriers to you just connecting with people through music. And that would be the only advice. You're a great musician, and I think all I've ever tried to do is encourage you to just enjoy connecting with people through music, and also we have to deal with the fact that we're not recording stars. We're not what many people perceive as being successful in the music business. We're just local musicians, if you want to put it like that. But we can still be of great service and still have a rewarding and fulfilling life in the music scene. So long as our expectations don't exceed what the community can give to us. And the simple thing I say is, ask not what the bars can do for you, ask not what the venues can do for you, ask what you can do for the venue. And if you serve the venue and serve the people that go to the venue, you will be asked back, and you will be working, and you'll enjoy the whole process. I think if you go into a bar and expect applause after every song, it's probably unrealistic. If you go to a bar and expect people to be quiet while you're playing and listen to you, it's you can't expect it. I don't expect it. I work for it. And sometimes I can go through a whole set and it seems like nobody's really paying attention, nobody's really listening. What's going on? And I used to get despondent and think, what am I doing here? But then I said, no, I'm here for them. I'm going to keep going. And then surely by the end of the night, they come around and they're all enjoying it. And they ask you for another song at the end of the night and when you finish, and it's a good feeling. So, and you can't blast them out of their seats, if you think they're not listening, all right, I'll turn the volume up, and then your volume turns up, and then they start talking louder because of the volume of the music, so you turn up even more, and we've all walked into a place where the music's just simply too loud, and so another piece of advice I would probably give would be to say, don't try and, the people will come to you if you just keep going. You don't have to blast them away with volume. Volume is not going to help. I try and keep my volume at levels where people can hear each other talk,
yeah, me
And,
too. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it is discouraging. It's really discouraging when you're playing in a bar. It's got the big screen TV right above your head,
yeah,
And then you finish a song and there's this huge cheer, yay! And I go, oh, thank you very much. They say, no, they just scored. It's a score on the TV, and it can be a little disheartening. So I do like to get the TV turned off above my head. I do expect that, but no expectations really. Just go out there and enjoy connecting with music. And if you play songs that people can relate to, they don't have to be the latest song. You don't have to be doing the latest song. You can be doing, there's all kinds of guys out there doing tributes sets, or tribute, and they seem to be doing quite well. But it's just about doing music that the audience can relate to. And because when I was younger, I was playing the songs that the younger people can relate to, and now I find my audience is older. I've got the gray-haired crowd now, but still, young people appreciate. If you play a Beatles song, there's going to be somebody 20 years old who's going to say, "Yeah, I love the Beatles." So it's still good.
Yeah. Do you ever find that when you do a really good gig and everybody kind of gets off on it? Like, do you ever find you get a little bit of a high off that lasts a couple of
Oh,
days?
absolutely. Oh, yes. Yeah. I just love it when people come up, afterwards, or yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. That is the most rewarding part of the job, Danny. That's, you know, it is very rewarding. It's the best job in the world in regard to that. It's not fair, really. We get a disproportionate amount of,
It's not
uh,
fair.
you know, well, we do, I mean, the chef in the kitchen, the chef is really working over a hot stove, being creative, making all this beautiful food, and they serve it. I see these people getting their meals, and the chef doesn't get applause. It's not fair. Once in a while, the chef might be called in and, give my company come in and, but really, they're serving, they're doing the same kind of thing. They're making people have a good night out. We're lucky, aren't we? We're spoiled because we get people, you can get too used to it. I have been certain venues, you get used to it. It is a very rewarding part of the job, Danny. That's what we're doing it for, is just to feel that warmth that we get, feel that appreciation is lovely. But it can be deceptive. Sometimes you play for a bunch of people and they're not clapping at all, and you think, oh well, I guess it didn't respond, but it was just like it was a cocktail gig, or they're having dinner or whatever you're playing, and nobody was clapping, and they didn't feel they should clap. But then at the end of it, after you're thinking, well, that wasn't a very successful gig, all of a sudden people come in when they're leaving, they'll come up and say, thank you very much, we really enjoyed the music. It's like, well, you didn't clap, but but so you never know. So you just keep going, regardless of whether or not you get any kind of clue as to how it's going over. But I do try and read the room as well, Danny. I do try and say, well, this looks like, they would like some whatever, they'd like some singer-songwriter stuff, or this crowd is ready to do the sing-along stuff, or this crowd wants the Irish traditional pub tunes, or maybe they just want nice, mellow, almost background music. It doesn't matter. You try and read the room and give them what they want, and hopefully, But it is fun, isn't it, when you get that appreciation.
Yeah,
You play with
absolutely.
you play with Keith, don't you? Quite a lot.
Oh yeah,
Keith.
yeah. Last year, I think I only did maybe three solo shows, and we played a lot. Like we played, I don't know, 70 maybe shows, 80. I'm not sure, but
That, that's great, Danny. Well, it's a slightly different dynamic when you do have a player on stage with you, because you can bounce off each other.
yeah,
And if you're really in the groove together, it's just a lot of fun, regardless of whether or not the audience enjoys it or not. You can just have, I've had a couple of guest musicians lately, join me on stage at Finn's, and it's been so much fun. There's a boy called Brody Cox. He's only a young fella, but he plays a cajon. He sits on the drum and plays. He's marvelous. And we just have a great time whenever he joins me on stage, just because we're feeling the groove together, and I'm appreciating what he's doing, and we're working together. And bandmates are great because they're buddies for life. Maury Limatan, and he used to be my bass player way back when I was playing in Peddler's Pub, and he came back to town. He's living in Barrie now, but he came back to town 3 or 4 weeks ago. Brought his bass in, and we just rocked. We didn't even need to practice. We did so many tunes, but it was so much fun for me because I could, we're appreciating, So it is kind of different when you got another band member, or if you're in a band and the band is working well together. That in itself is a kind of pleasure that is hard to describe. It's almost like you're on a team, and the team is scoring, all the time. And when you're solo, you don't get that. So it is nice to get the feedback. But I never go into a gig expecting them to give me applause. I always go in saying, I'm going to earn it, I'm going to work until I get it. I'm going to, give everything on stage. I'll give everything. It's the only way to go, is to do it full tilt. You can't just stand there and kind of run through the songs as, by rote. You have to feel them. You have to energize. I try and put the meaning into the words. I try and energize the song, so it's not like somebody dead on their feet up on stage. Although I'm sure there's been some nights when I have been dead up on my feet on stage and it showed, but, I really try and give everything, so that, and that's when it comes back to you. And it also makes the evening go a lot quicker or better, or, you're not looking at the clock thinking, oh my gosh, I've still got another hour to play and I'm exhausted already. You just have to keep going. And that's the way you make the gig. It's almost like a sport, it's almost like you're an athlete and you've got to really, every show you got to break a sweat, That's the way I feel about it.
I guess it's kind of like a hockey game, because most gigs are 3 sets, 3 periods.
That's it. Yes, Daddy. When it's your shift and you're on the ice, you got to give it. Look at those guys in the hockey games. Look at how, they really give it, don't they? I mean, you can't just, dilly-dally around.
Yeah.
When it's your shift, man, get on there and you know. And it's fun when you're sticky handling that guitar, Very fun.
So you have 4? Is it 4 studio albums?
Yeah, I have. I've got 4, but they're one of them was sort of just a. Yeah, I got 4. I started in 2000 with my Sudbury songbook, because by that time I've been here for 15 years or so, and the town had been so good to me, and I just said, I need to give something back here. Let me. And I thought I'll do a Sudbury songbook, and that was my first one. And I worked with Peter Nelson, who was living on Manitoulin Island in Mindamoya, teaching at the high school there, but also would come into Sudbury and do the telethon. He was the guitarist in the telethon band and the band leader for a while there, I think. And he was one of the guys that was around just after I came here. He was another one of the original. He played in the Peter Piper Inn for a while here in town before he went away to Teachers College. Anyway, Peter's a great guy, and he agreed to produce my album because I didn't have any studio skills myself, and I didn't have a lot of money, and he helped me with the arrangements, and he could do the instruments and drums and so on. And so Sudbury Songbook was a self-financed project with Peter Nelson, and I self-financed all of my albums. I didn't apply for grants or anything like that, or I may have applied for 1 or 2 and not got them. It's kind of disappointing when you apply for grants, or you apply and you want to be, and people say, well, they dangle this carrot money at you, and it's nice of them to do that for musicians, but I find obviously they're not going to give money to everybody, and I don't like getting rejection. It's like they're saying, well, your project is not worthy of our Arts Council money.
Yeah.
And so in the end, I just said I'm not going to bother applying because there's a 50-50 chance that I'll be rejected, and I don't need to deal with rejection at this time. I may as well just finance it myself, you know. And so, I mean, I'm very grateful to the Ontario Arts Council. When I was in theatre, I think we did a couple of theatre projects that the OAC financed, and it's a good thing. But I also think when you go and you allow other people to vote on whether or not your project is worthy of getting funding, I think you're kind of putting yourself in a position where somebody's voting on the worth of your project, and you don't need that. You need to say it doesn't matter. I'm going to do it myself because it doesn't matter whether other people think your project is worthy of funding or not. Dani, if you've got a good idea and you've got the album concept and you want to do it, just go ahead and do it. But don't let other people vote on the worth of your artistic creation or validate you an artist. You don't need anybody else to validate you. You just need to validate yourself and say, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. You know, this is what I believe in. And I believed in Sudbury Songbook. And, you know, it really, I did think I would get more response from maybe the city or from, I thought, I make this album. Everybody's going to go, yay, thanks for making an album about Sudbury. And they'll have me at all the civic functions. And so the album came out and nothing happened. Nothing at all. And I was stuck with all these CDs in my basement. You know, a lot of people can relate to that, right, Dani?
Yeah,
but, you know,
absolutely.
in the end, playing in Killarney, of course, I would sell a couple of CDs every once in a while, you know, from the stage. So that was handy. So I got my money back, you know, which is great. But expecting to be remunerated from recording projects in this day and age is you know, again, not realistic. You know, it's okay if you Taylor Swift in it. You know what I mean? It's great. I mean, those guys seem to just have a knack. But that's my Northern Ontario song mission was never intended to be like international chart success. It had a mission. And having a mission, I think, is important for an artist. Having a feeling that you have a purpose, and that you're focusing your efforts in one direction. So, it was worthwhile. My first album was the Sudbury Songbook. Then I did one called Inheritance, which was mainly Scots and Irish traditional songs with a couple of originals. Then I did one called The Long Way Home, which had quite a few Killarney songs on there and another couple of Northern Ontario songs. And then my last one, which I haven't really released at all, Dani, I think it was probably about 5 years ago, and that's called Storyteller. And that's got, again, a couple of Killarney songs on, and I put a couple of well-known poems to music, like In Flanders Fields and so on. So, yeah. I've got quite a collection now of music, and the Sudbury Performance Group, Mark Manisto is the director of that group, and he had me do a concert during COVID, and while I was playing all my Northern Ontario songs, he said, wow, these would make a great stage musical. I said, it's funny you should say that, Mark, because I've been kind of working on an idea of making a Northern Ontario stage musical, all about, just about celebrating our region. And he said, well, great, let's do it. I couldn't believe it. It was awesome. So Sudbury Performance Group financed, and also you got the rehearsal space and booked the space at the Lowe Theatre. And in February last year, we put on, it was called No Fences, and it was all of my Northern Ontario songs in a musical format. It was set in a tent and trailer park in Northern Ontario, and all of these, mainly young people, but all the community theatre players, and they were marvelous people. It was great to hear them singing these songs about Northern Ontario and Killarney and the sunsets in the north and Manitoulin Island, so on. It was great. It was really rewarding to see that staged, and it was very successful. Got standing ovation for every show, and good reviews, just very rewarding. And so I came back to theater. They asked me if I would direct it, and I did. A lot of work, but very rewarding. So that is another aspect of staying happy as a musician and content, if you like, is doing projects that, regardless of whether or not they're going to bring you money or fame or whatever you might expect of a musical career, just do them because you believe in them, and ultimately it's so rewarding to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So that was, it was good. It was called No Fences, and it was at Thornlow Theatre, and really, really a nice moment in my life to see the other people singing my songs. And there was a live band on stage, Scott Mitchell and Sarah Craig and a couple of others. It was lovely. It's really good to hear other people singing my songs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, am I talking too much, Dani?
No. I knew that it was going to sort of be this way because you and I can talk for days easily.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
I'll have to get you back on again at some point. This is all very new for me, and it's only been a couple of days, and I just want to thank.
It's wonderful, Dani. It's wonderful what you're doing. This is, again, it's a community service that you're doing, and it's marvelous. And you're very supportive of other musicians, which is great. I do find that most of the musicians in town are absolutely great in terms of respecting other musicians, and there's a good scene going on right now. Is people sharing information about gigs, people, helping other musicians. It's really good, and you are a big part of that, Dani. So thanks, man.
Well, it's my pleasure. So,
yeah.
Thank you very much again for your time. And
anytime, Dani.
I'll probably be bringing out one of my kids to watch you there in the next couple of weeks because I've been telling her about you, and we saw you at Bell Park last weekend. So I said you got to hear this guy play because it's a lot of fun. And
lovely. Yeah. Well, you can bring your guitar too if you want to join me on stage. Okay, buddy.
Okay. Thanks, Andy.
Okay, Dani. Thank you, buddy. Keep up the good work.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.